Hello, I'm old Mr. Kent. On my morning e-trike ride, although the morning version had some equipment failure, so now it's about 2:30 in the afternoon, and I'm doing everything over again. That's how you learn to do it better. Anyway, I'm 82 years old, and I have been telling the stories of when I went to college, where I worked and stuff. This is the last job that I had when I was going to college. So if you've been following my channel, finally we're going to get through with all the jobs. And so we'll get started. And by the way, I think I've got 1,130 miles on my electric e-trike. So it's doing me it does a good job, especially when I mistreat it. Okay, by the way, at the end of this video, I'll also have a poem. For those of you who don't like poetry, skip it. Those of you who do like poetry, this will be just a little longer video. Okay, so about a year and a half before I graduated, I got married. And if you've been following my channel, you know I have found a lot of jobs on my where I went to college. I went to college in Bellingham, Washington, and so I got married about a year and a half before I graduated, and my wife had a recently earned a degree in sociology, and so she was able to get a nice job working for the state, and that took a lot of pressure off of me because I had been struggling to pay the bills and working everywhere I could. And by the way, I'm riding around in a construction area because this time of day there's going to be lots of traffic in all the other areas, and so that's why I picked this. So anyway, so I was able, that's the same time that I was able to like rebuild the rowboat that I was talking about, and train, get a dog and train it, things like that, because at that point in my education, I didn't have heavy-duty classes like I had before, because I was just making sure I had enough hours to graduate in my major and minor fields. So I had lots of spare time. So anyway, this job offer came along. They had just now, Bellingham is 40 miles south of Blaine, Washington, which is right on the Canadian border. And so they had a ship. It was called the Princess Elaine, and it was outdated, and so they had pulled it into harbor there, and docked it, and turned it into a floating restaurant. And it was pretty fancy. Anyway, so there was job openings there, and somebody told me about it, so I went up and applied, and I got a job. So, checking things out here. So anyway, I got a job as a waiter, and a friend of mine, we what do you call it? We rode up there together, and so he got a job and I got a job. So anyway, it was 40 miles, and it was a long drive, but it was all freeway. When I first started college in 1960, well, let me go back in history. President Eisenhower, if you remember him, he was a general in the European War. And so when he became president, one thing he knew we needed was an infrastructure to move material, and so soldiers or whatever he might need to. And so he's the one that initiated the interstate freeway system. And so when I started college, they had the freeway going from south to north. And by the way, north-south freeways they have odd numbers, and east-west freeways have even numbers. Anyway, well, I just, thought maybe you didn't know that. So anyway, So they had the freeway up to Bellingham in 1960. They had, except for the last 20 miles. And so while I was going to school there, then they finished it, and it went all the way up to the border by the time 1964 or whatever it was that came along. And so it was a quick trip on the freeway from Bellingham up to Blaine, Washington, where the Princess Elaine was docked probably forever. Now the picture, I'll put the picture up from time to time. The port side, which is the left side of the ship, it was up against a cliff, not against it, but that was what was on the port side. And then on the starboard side was the dock and the parking lot and all that kind of stuff. So that's how it was. Well, because it was docked and it was a big ship. Sometimes when we'd have extremely low tides, it would sit on the bottom, and then it would list or lean to the port side against that, not against that cliff, but anyway, towards that cliff. And so it was kind of, what they had done was when they remodeled, by the way, they just did that one deck, the main deck. They remodeled it into a restaurant, of course. And so when you took food in to the people, you came out of a big door, and then when the bus boys were cleaning up, they put everything on a tray and took it over to the left side of the ship and along that wall up to the kitchen. I don't know if that's making any sense, but when it would lean, because in a boat or ship, the deck is crowned, and so when it was leaning over, that meant it was a pretty steep angle for the bus boys to carry a tray full of dishes and stuff. And so so let's see, I just remember something. So they, if anybody spilled any liquid on the floor, then they didn't see it as they came walking along there, they'd slip every time, drop everything they had, big crash, and then it all had to be cleaned up. So that's just part of the fun. Anyway, so I started out as a busboy, and it wasn't long until they promoted me to being a waiter. And that meant I had to wear dark trousers and a white shirt, and then they provided a vest that you wore, and so you looked nice and sharp at everything. And so anyway, that's how we dressed. And then well, let's see, what should I, oh yeah, they had live entertainment. And so they had almost every week, I think almost, but every week they had a new different group. And they had some startup groups, and they had some, top of the line groups, like they had Louis Armstrong was there one week, and I remember Art and Dottie Todd. If you're my age, you remember Art and Dottie Todd. They had some nice songs, and then there was others, but I can't remember all the rest of them. And the interesting thing is how to be successful even as a musician. When they had a little corner off to would be on the starboard side of the dining room, they had a little corner for people like me and also the performers to sit down and take a break. And so you'd be sitting in there, and like Louis Armstrong, he'd come sit down at my table and talk to me like I was just as important as he was. And the successful people were like that. The ones that were just the startup people, they looked at you like they're looking down their nose. And I don't know how far they ever got, but I can tell you that the reason, like Louis Armstrong, the reason he was successful is because how he treated everybody. I'm sure that's more what it was than anything. So anyway, I just learned that I would like to study human behavior. So, and then when I would, I made a lot of good tips. I'll tell you how I did that. I mean, you treat people nice, and of course, remember this was an expensive place, very expensive. I took my wife out there for dinner one Saturday night, and I don't know if it was to hear the live music or what. So I take her out there, and we couldn't afford much of anything except the beef stroganoff. A plate of beef stroganoff back then in 1960 something was $20. So so we spent the wad and had beef stroganoff. So you can imagine what it cost for steak and all that stuff. And so when people would come out there, they would expect to, usually they're big tippers. And so if you did everything right, you got a nice tip. And so I made a lot of extra money just on tips. But the best way to make the best way that I made good tips was a lot of times a guy would call me over and he'd hand me a $5 bill, and he's at a table with a whole bunch of people, and he'd say, "Would you get me a pack of Camels or whatever it was, Chesterfield or something?" And so I'd take it and go up to the front desk, get a tip tray, and get the change from the lady up there, and buy a pack of cigarettes out of the machine. And then I would take the cigarettes and break the top open a little bit, and you know how you see in the pictures how they got about 3 cigarettes sticking out of the top, and I would lay that down on the money on top. The money would be on the tip tray, and I put that down in the tip tray, and then I would get a little book of matches, open it up and bend it over backwards, and take one of the matches and pull it straight up out of the others, so it kind of stood out. So it would be easy for him to light his cigarette. So I'd walk up with it, and I'd have the tip tray, which had the money, and then the cigarettes, and then the matches. And usually they were trying to impress everybody for one reason or another. So he would grab the matches, and then he would grab the cigarettes, and there would be the money, and almost always he would say, "Keep the change." And cigarettes back then only cost about 35 cents a pack or something. It was really so that worked really well. And then another one night I got some pretty good tips. My wife had our first baby boy, and that day, and so I went to work. And before I went to work, I bought a whole bunch of cigars, because the guy hands out cigars when he has baby. And so I got some cigars and put them on the inside pocket of my vest, and then as I would come up to a table, and the guy was all finished eating and would he won his bill, well then I'd hand him a cigar, and I'd say, "My wife had a baby boy today." I did that all night long. And almost every time they would say something like, "Well, here's $20 to buy him some shoes." Just an example, they did that. And I made a whole bunch of money that night. I don't remember how much it was, but for me, back in those days, it was a lot of money. I might have been around $80 or something. And so instead of taking it home to my wife, who was in the hospital, I took all the workers when the Princess Elaine restaurant shut down. Then I invited them all over to an all-night restaurant across the street and down the road a while away. I'd treat them to something, So I spent the whole wad on the workers, and so that was kind of fun. Had some strange things happen. One Saturday night, my buddy and I, we carpooled, and so we came out to get in the car, and there was this lady standing out there, and she asked us if we were headed to Canada, because, Blaine is right on the border. And we said, "No, what's wrong?" Well, she had come with some friends, and I don't know what the situation was, but they left without her, and she needed to get home. And so we just decided, okay, well, sure, we'll just take you up there, across the border, get you home to where you want to be. And so let's see, I think I can go that way. And so she said, well, I have some alcohol that she had purchased at the at the restaurant, because they sold bottles of alcohol. And so so you can't take that, or we couldn't take it across the border. So my buddy said, well, we'll just put it under the seat. I'll bet you we can get by with it. So we did. We went through and we found, I don't remember what the deal was, but anyway, we found where she lived and dropped her off. And she was thankful. And then we came back home. And let's see, there was something else. My memory's getting really bad. Oh, yeah, a sad part of, oh no, I'll tell the sad part later. The cook at that restaurant was he really knew how to cook. He made so many good dishes. And when I would have my break time, I could order what I wanted, and then I'd have that. That's where I learned the right way to eat a baked potato. Anyway, and so, and then he always had a dessert, and I love pecan pie. And so I'd take pecan pie as my dessert. So they'd hand me that, and I'd go eat it. Well, he found out after a while that I liked pecan pie. And so I don't know why he was like this, but he was. So I'd come in and come to work, and before the place opened, and he said, now today I burned 3 pecan pies. Like, we can't serve them, they got burned. But they're good enough to eat if you want to take them home with you. That happened a couple of times. So that was kind of fun. And because he knew I loved pecan pie. I still do, but I just can't eat very much of it anymore. So anyway, let's see. We had kind of a bad situation. If you know what shish kebab, the spear that goes up and has food and vegetables on it and stuff. We sold those, and then they put them on a spear. It looked like a real spear, and at the bottom of the spear it had a cup, and they would put this flammable stuff in the cup and light it, and then as you carried it, it would be supposedly keeping the food warm. And so, and a sad thing is this one kid, I'll just pull over here so I can not go off the road. This one kid, instead of carrying them here, he carried them like this. And, which looks pretty cool. But the only problem with that is when he came underneath of a bulkhead or a beam going across, it tipped those spears back, and those cups of flaming material rolled down his sleeve, and his arms got on fire, and they had to take him to emergency because he was pretty well hurt. So let me see, what else was there about that job? I'm trying to think. That's about the only bad thing that I saw. Well, it was fun working there, and the people were so nice, and the cafeteria, or the dining area was, in the picture, it wasn't all the way down those windows, but it was part of the windows, I guess, became next to the kitchen and stuff. So it looks bigger in the picture than it really was. But anyway, so they had this lady. First of all, when I started there, the kitchen manager person, whoever it was, super nice. The whole group was really nice people. And but after we'd been there for a while, I guess the kitchen manager quit or something, and so they hired this, I'll just call her a crazy lady. Her name was Ruby. I feel sorry for her because she just was that she just didn't have it all together for some reason. But so she had the managing the plates coming and going, and the waiters and bus boys, and she had, and then especially on Saturday night, she'd get so wound up and tight that she would actually start yelling at people, and I don't know if they could hear her out in the dining hall, but I don't know if the owners even knew what was going on. But she'd be screaming because somebody didn't do something right. Now, I remember one time with me, she said, "Go do this over here." And so I went over there, I'm doing it. And pretty soon she hollered, "We need you to come over here and get this done." And so I go over there and I get that done. And then pretty soon she says, "Didn't you finish this job over here?" And I said, "No, you wanted me to go over here." And she screamed at you. And it's not just me. All of us bus boys and all of us waiters, she's screaming at us all the time. And we finally, it was sad because, the poor woman she should have been in a different position. So it was, she just got really mad all the time. And we finally got fed up with it because it was no fun. Nobody wanted to come to work anymore because of the situation. Just get yelled at. And so somebody came up with the idea, next time on Saturday night when they're most busy, next time that she gets in has one of those fits, let's just walk out. And of course, that means everybody's got to walk out, otherwise you're stuck there. And so that's what happened. She started screaming one Saturday night, and so we just took our aprons and our vests off and put them on the table and walked out, all of us together. The nice people that owned it, they still sent me my paycheck and everything because I think they knew why it happened, because I'm sure some of those guys explained. But anyway, so that's the only time I've ever walked off a job, but I did because it was crazy to try to keep working there. It was one of the most fun jobs I ever had. All right, so now it's time for a poem. I'm sorry, it's going to be kind of a long video, but anyway, so I'll just pedal along here, and you can listen to the poem, and then we'll get back. More thoughts on love. Love is sitting when you'd rather walk. Love is listening when you'd rather talk. Love is working when you'd rather sleep. Love is giving when you'd rather keep. Love is hiding when you'd rather seek. Love is silence when you'd rather speak. Love is frowning when you'd rather grin. Love is losing when you'd rather win. Love is catching when you'd rather throw. Love is staying when you'd rather go. Love is smiling when you'd rather cry. Love is living when you'd rather die. Love is when you do what you must in order to keep another's trust. It's reaching deep inside oneself for something precious on a shelf that you've been holding in your soul, but love consents to let it go. Love is seen within the eye. Love is heard within a cry. Love is felt through fingertips. Love is spoken through careful lips. Love's description is out of reach. Love's emotion we cannot teach. And those who find it ask not why, but simply know 'twill never die. You might remember I read a poem way back about a guy that wasn't sure whether he was in love or sick, one or the other. Well, so that's kind of a follow-up on the guy that figured out what love was all about. So with that, I want to say thank you so much for watching the video. It's a long video, I'm sorry. I thank you so much for watching, and God bless.